Hey, my name's Andrew Bell, Technical Marketing Engineer for TMS, one of the TMEs that works on WebEx-enabled telepresence. Today I wanted to do a quick VOD on productivity tools and how to get WebEx productivity tools to work with TMS XE and TMS to schedule WebEx-enabled telepresence meetings. So this is relying that you've already gone through configuring TMS, and TMS works with WebEx, and you can schedule WebEx-enabled telepresence calls from the web interface of TMS. So it's important to know the flow of how productivity tools actually works when it schedules a WebEx-enabled telepresence meeting. It's very different than any other scheduling methodologies that we have. So it's different than the Smart Scheduler, different from the WebEx scheduling mailbox, and the web interface of TMS. So what happens is productivity tools is installed on an Outlook for Windows PC. And when you book a meeting, productivity tools will talk directly to WebEx. So this is a lot different than the other scheduling methods where TMS would talk directly to WebEx. So productivity tools will talk to WebEx and book the WebEx side of the call, get back some information from WebEx about what the video URI we need to use to get the MCU to call out to WebEx. Productivity Tools then talks to TMS XE, which has something called the TMS booking service. This booking service is resident on TMS XE. Then TMS XE sends that on the booking API to TMS. Information sent backwards, and then the telepresence information sent to productivity tools, and productivity tools will fill in the original meeting invite with all the WebEx information that it got from WebEx and the information that was sent back from the booking service on TMS XE. The moment you hit save, obviously it'll be filled the meeting invite with all the WebEx information and all the information we got from the TMS booking service in terms of telepresence. The meeting is then saved and sent to Exchange. TMS XE is going to actually pick this up at one point since it is monitoring room resources in Exchange, but it knows that this meeting's already been booked in TMS and won't create any sort of duplicate meeting in TMS. So it's important to note that the TMS booking service is installed on TMS XE and not TMS as of version 3.1 of TMS XE and 14.3 of TMS. By default, it's not installed when you go through the TMS XE installation. So if you have TMS XE already installed, you need to rerun the installer and choose that you want to have the TMS booking service installed on TMS XE. So basically, this is what it looks like from a productivity tools perspective. I talk to WebEx on one leg and talk to TMS booking service, which is resident on TMS XE. So this communication between WebEx and between TMS XE needs to be secure. So it's basically HTTPS communication between productivity tool and WebEx, and between the productivity tool and TMS XE. So obviously, WebEx being a cloud service already has certificates created in WebEx which productivity tools uses to verify the identity of WebEx and then to encrypt any communication between productivity tools and WebEx. So one step that we're going to have to go through is basically certificate creation on the TMS XE side, and it's also a good idea to create valid certificates on TMS as well. More than likely, if you've gone through an installation in recent versions of TMS or TMS XE, it's created self-signed certificates, and this is what's used for HTTPS access. So we need to have some sort of certificate to use TLS/HTTPS. So when you've gone through the installation of TMS or TMS XE, there's probably a self-signed certificate generated at that time. So self-signed certificates will work for TMS and TMS XE, but the user that uses productivity tools is going to get prompted every time. Are you sure you want to communicate with this website? He has a unsecured certificate. We can't verify that. So it's probably a good idea to create valid certificates signed by your Active Directory certificate authority. instead of users being prompted if you want to accept the certificate or reject the certificate, users could accept the certificate and add it to their PC's trusted certificate authorities, and then it'll always be trusted, but that's just an additional step for the end user that I think we want to avoid, being that non-technical users are going to be using productivity tools. It's much better if us as kind of the administrators create valid certificates, go through the steps of that, so each user doesn't have to have an additional step of adding certificates to their PC's trusted certificate authority. So in order to create certificates, we're going to have to make sure that both TMS and TMS-XE have valid host names that all users that are going to have productivity tools installed on can resolve. It's a good idea to do that in any sort of certificate generation scenario. And just to note that IIS, Internet Information Services, which runs TMS-XE and TMS, make it dead simple to create certificates. It's not like the VCS certificate creation guide where we have to generate the CSR, send that off to a public CA, wait, download it to our computer, upload it to the VCS, put in intermediates and all that stuff. IIS has a built-in tool that can generate certificates against your Active Directory's certificate authority instead of going through all those manual steps. So these steps that we're going to go through here on how to generate certificates have to be done both on TMS and TMS-XE. Recommendation for most deployments is to have TMS and TMS-XE on separate boxes. For small deployments, you could probably get away with having TMS and TMS-XE co-resident, but it's a good idea to have these servers separate on separate servers, especially since we're using the TMS booking service, which means a lot of connections could be made from productivity tools to the booking service on TMS-XE, and we don't want that to bog down TMS by any means. So these steps are showing for my TMS. We'll have to do identical steps for TMS-XE. The steps are identical though. So under IIS, we have to choose server certificates. If we look in there, we'll see all the certificates that IIS has. More than likely, we'll have one certificate, or you'll have the one certificate, which is a self-signed certificate that TMS uses. We can see that it's issued to the address of my TMS server, issued by the same address. We know that it's self-signed. TMS01 created this certificate for TMS01. What we want to do is create a domain certificate. So we could go through the other steps of manually creating a CSR, submitting it to a CA, and then getting our certificate, and then applying or completing the CSR process on IIS. Really, if we create a domain certificate, all these steps are automated against the Active Directory certificate authority. More than likely, any PC that's using productivity tools is part of Active Directory and would inherently trust this Active Directory certificate authority anyways. So if we want to create a domain certificate, we just click that button. We get prompted for some information specifically about TMS or TMS-XE. Make sure that the common name is the same as the host name that's resolvable in DNS for TMS and TMS-XE. Next step is to select which certificate authority we want to use. We click that, it'll show us all of the CAs that are within our Active Directory. I only have one CA, and it's actually resident on my domain controller. So I'll select that, and I can give it a friendly name and save it. So now we see under server certificates on TMS, I have the self-signed certificate, which was there before, and I have a certificate which I've named signed by domain certificate authority, issued to TMS01 by the Active Directory certificate authority. This Active Directory certificate authority is more than likely trusted by any PC that's part of the domain that TMS is on. So inherently, anybody that's running productivity tools will trust this certificate. Next step we need to do is change the bindings. Basically, this shows which, I guess you could say, sites or folders should be forwarded based on port or the host name that you're trying to access. TMS really just has a binding for port 80 using HTTP or 443 for HTTPS. What we need to do under the HTTPS binding is change it so we're using our domain signed certificate and not the self-signed certificate. This way we'll give the user the new certificate we created and not the self-signed certificate. So once I choose that, I just need to restart IIS, and any new connections to TMS using HTTPS will be using the new certificate that we created within IIS in the last couple steps. So right now, you would have done those steps for TMS. You would have duplicated those steps on your TMS XE. Next step would be to verify that the certificates were created properly and everything's resolving correctly. So basically, Productivity Tools is going to talk to TMS and TMS XE. We need to verify that certificates are correct on both of these devices. So if we go to TMS and you see the little lock icon, and this would be done from a computer that would have Productivity Tools eventually installed on it. We can see there's a little lock icon. If I click on that, I can see that this is a certificate TMS01 signed by the Active Directory CA, so it's inherently trusted by this computer. Everything's good at that point. Productivity Tools reaches out to the booking service on TMS XE, as we talked about before. There's no reason why an end user would have to browse to this address, but it's a good troubleshooting tool just to make sure that certificates are being presented by TMS XE properly. So this is the URL, not really published anywhere because there's no reason for end users to access this directly. But if you browse to this address on TMS XE, you can then verify that TMS XE has a valid certificate. It's been trusted by this PC since it's been signed by a CA, the Active Directory CA, which this computer inherently trusts. So this is basically just mimicking the steps that Productivity Tools would use on logging into TMS XE to book the TelePresence side of the call. One other step that we've noticed for some users is we need to change, I guess you can call them the authentication providers. By default, sometimes we've seen NTLM authentication fail for some reason, and it doesn't, or Kerberos authentication fail, and it doesn't go back to NTLM authentication. So more than likely, Negotiate was at the top by default, and NTLM was below. If we move NTLM to the top, it'll use that, and any Kerberos issues that we have would be resolved by changing that. Some other troubleshooting tools, if HTTPS is working fine, but we have some sort of issue, maybe TMS is throwing an error and we're getting some sort of error message in TMS or in the productivity tools that we don't understand. There's a tool called Fiddler, which you can run, and basically this will sniff inside of the encrypted HTTPS connection to productivity tools and to WebEx, so you can see actually what's going on. If we had some sort of error, there's no error here, but you'd probably see a more accurate error message within this tool. The only other step that we have to do for productivity tools is really configure the address of TMS XE, which has the booking service in WebEx. Basically, you're going to download productivity tools from WebEx. It'll log into WebEx and pull down a config. This is how Productivity Tools knows the address of TMS XE and how to book the telepresence side of the call. One other note as well, whenever you run Productivity Tools, you could be prompted for a username and password each time. This would be the user's Active Directory username and password. If we want to avoid that being prompted each time, it'd be a good idea to have a trusted site within Internet Explorer of anything maybe at your domain. And then under the custom level settings, we can change the user authentication login settings to automatically log in with the current username and password. This is a way that we can avoid users logging into the TMS booking service each time Productivity Tools tries to book a telepresence meeting. So Productivity Tools does have some improved error messages, so it should give more accurate information on why we couldn't book the meeting. Previously, the error message that we got, the only error message we got is we've hit a glitch. That may still pop up every once in a while. Basically, the Productivity Tools doesn't understand the error message that TMS booking service sent to it, and it'll just blankly say we've hit a glitch. You probably want to run Fiddler to do a sniff on that just to see what's going on between productivity tools and TMS XE, the booking service. Also, if you look into the logs of productivity tools, there's more detailed information in there, which should help out with any sort of troubleshooting to figure out why conferences aren't being created if you can't create conferences successfully. That's basically it. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, probably the best place to ask them is on the partner community forum. I monitor that regularly and we can answer any other questions there. Thank you.